Welcome back to Taiwan Outlook. Our guest today is the Vice Chairperson of the Mainland Affairs Council, Dr. Chen-Yuan Tung. Dr. Tung, we've been talking about China's economy. Apparently the ups and downs of China's economy will have tremendous impacts on Taiwan's economic situation because the ties between the two sides are growing closer and closer. So the thing is, what's the trend of Taiwanese investment in China right now?
Well, thank you very much, Professor Low. I think the real problem is not only economic factor in China, but also we need to see the social factor in China and the political risk in China. For instance, China's income inequality, as you mentioned before, has been increasing at a very rapid rate. If we use the so-called Gini coefficient to measure the income inequality in China, the Gini coefficient has reached as high as 0.496 for last year. For most countries, if the Gini coefficient is above 0.4, then these countries will invite a lot of, will have a lot of major protects in China, in the country. So in Chinese situation, this will be more serious. And we did not see any signal that this kind of income inequality will be improved over time. That means that gradually, this figure might reach as high as 0.6. For a country with 0.6 of Gini coefficient, we would fall into a very unstable situation, but even turmoil situation.
There have been all kinds of social unrest or demonstrations on in China. How serious is the problem right now?
Well, according to Chinese Public Security Department, in 1994, their figure was around 10,000.
Social unrest?
Major protest in China, major protest of large scale, according to their definition. Then in 2004, this figure reached as high as 74,000. And then in 2005, this figure reached as high as 87,000.
So it's increasing?
It's increasing very rapidly. But then in 2006 and 2007, the Chinese government decided not to publish these figures. So although we cannot understand the real situation in China, but still we can see the income inequality or regional inequality or even economic balance has been deteriorated over time. So this will become a very serious trouble in China. And then on the other hand, political problem also has been deteriorated over time. For instance, Carnegie Endowment in the United States, scholars called missing pay, Dr. Pei. He mentioned that in 2005, Chinese government has been corrupt very seriously. And according to his statistics, I think the cost for Chinese corruption has reached as high as 6%, 3% of GDP. And this figure is even higher than the total expenditure of education in China.
So are you saying that the corruption situation now in China is very rampant?
Yes, very rampant. And Ms. Pei mentioned that this corruption will be the biggest risk, biggest threat to Chinese political stability. And we need to look at this kind of situation, not only economic factors, but also social and political situation. If Chinese government cannot maintain social and political stability, then people might lose their confidence in their financial system. And this will become a very serious problem because people might put out their money from the bank, and this will cause a lot of so-called liquidity problem for the banking sector, and will cause financial crisis in China. And this will put a lot of pressures on inflation further, and then might cause social instability and even riot in China. If this kind of situation occurred, then foreign investors will fled out of China.
But the thing is, our business people, Taiwanese business people should know what's really going on in China before they go there and invest. If they know the social unrest, they know the political corruption and so on, they decide to go there anyway. So what's the problem with this kind of calculation of political risk over there?
Well, for Taiwanese people, I think first they have a very big incentive to invest in China due to similar culture and the same language. So they can utilize this kind of advantage of cheap labor in China to operate their business in the world. But on the other hand, they also believe they can control. The Chinese government can control the situation because of the authoritarian regime can put any cost to maintain the social stability and political stability. But from longer perspective, you can see this kind of risk has been increasing and deepened. Yeah. So I think the Taiwanese people need to be prepared for any risk stemming from the social and political risk.
But let's talk about the economic factors that are driving people to China or away from China. For instance, in early this year, China passed the so-called new labor law, revised a little bit, and some Chinese people, seeing this kind of increasing cost of having a factory in China, decided to go to other countries. How serious is the impacts of this new labor law?
Well, new labor law actually is not very strict compared to their previous laws. Yeah. But right now, the local government and the central government has more determination to implement the law. So this caused a lot of cost and problems for local business people, particularly for Taiwanese people and foreign investors. You know, I just read some reports on Korean investors. Yeah. You know, they has been bankrupt for, I think, for only 1 month. More than 60 Korean enterprises has gone bankrupt.
In China?
In China, in Shandong province.
Okay.
And then for Taiwanese people, in early this year, I also heard from the reporters, more than 20 to 30 Taiwanese people has, gone bankrupt in January in just one big city, Dongguan, in Guangdong.
Okay.
So their estimate is that maybe there will be more than 2,000 of Taiwanese people who might go bankrupt in the next 1 or 2 years. This caused a lot of pressures on Taiwanese people to operate in China. According to some estimate, this kind of labor law will increase by 30% for their total operation cost in China.
But the thing is, some of the business people decide to go to other places, but there are also other reasons for them to go to other parts of China.
Yeah.
And China has been trying to move away those polluting industries from the coastal area to other places. Was there also some of the pressures that our business people are facing right now?
Well, for small and medium enterprises, they don't have choice, or they have little choice. They would like to move into hinterland of China.
Yeah.
But for large or medium enterprises, they might have some choice. For instance, Taiwan's largest private enterprises in Taiwan, Foxconn, has planned to invest $5 billion in Vietnam for the next 5 years.
Okay.
And another big notebook computers makers in Taiwan also plan to invest $50 million in Vietnam for the next 3 years. So you look at different scale of enterprises, you will see different responses and strategy they will adopt.
Yeah, but the debate that we have been having now in Taiwan is that what's the role of the government? Apparently there's a market force driving people to China or away from China. But the thing is, the government should have just stand idly by or try to help or even to control some of the flows of capitals. What's the role of the government?
Well, from the current administration point of view, we try to provide some mechanism to manage this kind of risk. This is not only a risk for individual enterprises in Taiwan, but we need to care about the overall, the national risk for Taiwan's economy, economic instability, or even economic risk of collapse of China. So we need to construct a sound mechanism to manage this kind of cross-strait economic relations. So in the past, we adopted a policy called proactive management and effective opening policy.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, we need to create a very sound mechanism to manage this kind of risk, to provide sufficient information, not only bilateral economic exchanges between Taiwan and China, but also economic, social, political information or assessment of China to Taiwanese people.
Yeah.
In addition, we also try to encourage our business people to divert their investment from China to other places. And also we try to attract more business people, Taiwanese people, to invest in Taiwan.
Yeah.
So we try to provide a lot of incentive for Taiwanese people to invest in Taiwan. And finally, we also try to set up some framework to regulate these kind of exchanges. For example, we hope Taiwanese people can maintain advantage of their technology in Taiwan.
Yeah.
And also we try to set up some regulation so that Taiwanese people need to invest some money in Taiwan if they would like to invest in China. And also they need to agree upon government's monitoring after they invest in China.
Yeah.
So we try to establish this kind of mechanism to monitor, to facilitate, and to provide some help to minimize this kind of risk for Taiwanese people's investment in China.
But another issue that has been debated now in Taiwan is whether we've been investing too much in the China market or investing too little. Like there should be more. What's your take on that?
Well, if we compare to other countries, our investment in China has been too much. You know, in 2000, only 0.8% of our GDP has been invested in China. But then in 2006, this figure jumped to 2.2%.
Of GNP? Of
GNP.
Okay.
If you compare to, you know, even Singapore, Korea, Japan, the United States, all these countries has been investing in China less than Taiwan in terms of GDP ratio.
Yeah.
So from this perspective, we need to concern about this kind of over investment in China. But from market forces, you know, Taiwanese people continue to increase their investment in China.
That's right.
So we need to try to set up mechanism, not just control this kind of flow, but try to facilitate and try to manage these kind of exchanges between Taiwan and China so that we can minimize the risk stemming from these kind of exchanges.
But in terms of diversification of the investment, you know, how you know, dependent we are on China's market in terms of investment?
In terms of investment, this figure has been very large. You know,
what's the percentage share of our overall FDIs?
In 2007, more than 55% of our annual total investment went to China. But this is only official statistics. We need to understand that a lot of investment, you know, going to China were conducted via third countries.
That's right.
You know, for example, via Cayman Island and Virgin Island. So you calculate, include all this portion of investment from Taiwan to China via third countries. I think this figure will be very easily reached to more than 70%.
So almost 2/3 of our investment goes to China right now.
Yeah, and also this kind of trend has been increased over time. You know, in 2000, only 34% of annual our investment went to China. But last year, more than 61% of our investment has been going to China.
And as you just point out, Dr. Tung, that our government has been very concerned about this kind of over-dependency of Taiwan's investment in China. But on the other hand, Chinese government has been trying to attract more investments from Taiwan to China. So when we come back, we'll talk about China's strategy towards Taiwan, especially on the economic front. So don't go away. We'll be back after this message.